Hello guys, this is Hello Tech Gaming here. We're going to take a look at the map changes to the main cities, which include Fahrenheit Coast, Deadlands, and Endless Shore. Why aren't we covering all the others? Well, it is simply because of the fact that the way the developers changed the maps, they really only made significant changes to the core center maps, essentially, the borderline regions. And I'm guessing that the thought process for this was the idea that most people end up fighting in these areas, so changing these areas would allow for more people to experience all the different urbanization changes that they've added to the game. And no, this logically makes sense. And I do like a good amount of those changes. I feel that it's not as encompassing as I would like, essentially, but other than that, so I've actually liked most of the different changes that they've added. So most of the larger cities that they've added are really nice, but enough of that. Let's get into the map changes. So what you're looking at right here is Fahrenheit Coast. Yeah, this is actually the... I'm starting with the biggest map change of all, so basically this is the biggest map change added to the game. As you can see, right here, there's now a giant river so just going through here. And it's interesting because it... what is it? Fahrenheit Coast has changed a lot, or was it Westgate? I know that there was like this one map in the before World Congress that had the colonials and the one that's separated with a giant body of water, and it was almost impossible to win, essentially. And it's gonna be reminiscent of that. Of course, there are land bridges over here. You have, interestingly enough, you have two connecting the warden side and two connecting the colonial side to the actual main region. The biggest changes are the inclusion of the river. There's now a central island in the middle over here. Meta is gone. The town of Meta no longer exists in this world, or so. So, yeah, what is it? I was never fond of that town anyway. Terra has been moved to the center of this island here. And Jade Cove. Let me tell you about Jade Cove. Jade Cove is the best addition in terms of city-wise into the game, in my opinion. It is this nice, urbanized city on a hill that has huge amounts of verticality to it, huge amounts of flanking routes, basically. It is literally a fortress on a hill. And it's not just Jade Cove, so Apollo's Landing over here also has huge amounts of urbanization to it, so. And I find it just interesting how in stark contrast to the previous version of Jade Cove, where it was just nothing. Just this little mountain area over here, though. Just a couple rocks. And now it is like this awesome city, essentially, so. And what is it? No, so the entire terrain here has been changed quite a bit or so. Like this over here, Sickle Hill, is this huge elevation point from this bridge over here. And I think this continues all the way to Apollo's Landing, where it then downclines into the riverbank itself. So, going from Apollo's Landing, so, like, either way you go, if you are a warden trying to move upwards to Jade Cove, you're fighting uphill. If you're a colonial fighting to Apollo's Landing, you're fighting uphill. If you are a warden trying to cross this bridge, you're fighting all the way uphill. So, I mean, these areas are very interesting, but it makes it so I'm pretty sure most of the war is going to take place in these areas just because of the fact that they are so... It's just that Foxhole doesn't really handle elevations well, essentially. If someone's higher than you, they can see farther than you, essentially. So you'll be shot from positions that you don't even know exist, essentially. And getting artillery strikes on it is going to be impossible because if the spotters are on the low elevation, they just can't see where the fortifications are. So it's going to be kind of interesting. But other than the center mass over here, the addition of the river, changes in cities, in Jade Cove itself, most of the map is just relatively the same, except for now Mara is... It feels kind of redundant in the sense that it's now just... It's just out there. It's like no bridge connecting it to the mainland directly. And now you have Lux Homestead and Mara kind of just like both as these obstacles that the colonials have to get through in order to get to the north or so. Despite the fact that Mara can now, I guess, just be cut off if a flanking maneuver gets to Lux Homestead first, essentially. But other than that, the map is relatively the same. And I think that's my biggest criticism on the map change, is that it... I mean, of course if they just changed everything just willy-nilly for the sake of change, it would be disastrous, it would be bad, so unwarranted, basically. But, I guess I really wanted to get more urbanization, and I didn't get that in most of the cities. But let's move on. Now, moving on to Deadlands over here. It's relatively the same, really, for the most part in terms of geography. What is it? Most of the changes take place in the center of the map over here. These already existed, these like little like lakes, I guess, or so it's nice that they're putting them in the actual map, which is awesome. It looks like they also made some like they've added the little hills, they've added the steps. I think they might have reduced the steps size or so. I have to take a look at that later on. I did a pass by through all the maps really, and most of the geography was really the same, but let's just talk about Abandoned Ward. So Abandoned Ward is this giant city in the center of the map now. I mean, technically it was, I guess, one of the larger urban areas of the game or so previously. And now it is now probably the most important map, or the important city in the game, late game, because of this guy right here. Let's take a look at this. So this guy over here, what is that? That is the Advanced Shell Factory. So if you remember all those videos that I talked about where I was talking about the different tank shells, the all-piercing shells, HE shells, and shrapnel shells, that is that guy right there. So that factory is what makes all those different shells. And it is going to be very important late game because of just how incredibly powerful those shells are. Now, what is it? I've not found any other regions or so that actually have this factory. So I'm thinking that they're going to add more later on. I would hope so. Probably putting one in Jade Cove and one in, what is it? Saltbrook Channel, I believe. But as it stands, currently it's the only one that has it, so controlling Abandoned Ward will be key to dominating the late game tank meta, essentially, especially with battle tanks now in the game. But Abandoned Ward, besides the strategic elements, it's been changed tactically as well. There is a lot more urbanization on the north side of Abandoned Ward, as well as the urbanization of Abandoned Ward itself stretches throughout almost the entire island. There are now 2 bridges crossing into Abandoned Ward from both sides or so, well there was only one on each side. Now there is this small bridge from Cemetery Junction, as well as another bridge coming in from the plaza as well, which allows for multiple different routes. And this is also in addition to the infantry bridge over here from Hope's Causeway. So there's still multiple routes to get into Abandoned Ward. As well as, I think there are all enough Actually, I never checked that, so there could be some flat plains here where you could probably get some, maybe a gunboat or maybe an APC or a landing barge through to get like vehicles in. Though it's going to be daunting to try to get that over from the other maps. But overall, Abandoned Ward seems very fleshed out, so it's very nice, very urbanized. I kind of wish that they kind of not only urbanize the plots but also urbanize Sun's Haven Gateway, so kind of just like the suburbs or the low or medium density areas slowly moving up to Abandoned Ward. One of the criticisms that I guess I have for all the cities, so before I move on to Endless Shore, is the fact that they don't really scale up the urbanization the closer you get to the city. Instead, you kind of just cross into the city and then everything's just suddenly urbanized. So you just have all these stone walls and all these houses basically, but you don't get like a gradual incline. We have like these little towns and then you slowly move into like the business district or so and then to the main plaza. So basically you don't get that subtle increases, so you're just kind of just shot into the middle of the city really. Which is alright. So I really think they should urbanize more of these areas or so and then have more flat terrain or so outside basically or so with variations. But I do like what they've done with this or so, and also I feel like this is the biggest step towards urbanization and that they're probably going to add more steps to this or so later on or so by fleshing out the other regions. Now the final map we're going to take a look at is Endless Shore. Endless Shore is kind of the same boat as Deadlands, in the sense that it is for the most part the same in terms of geography, with the exception of, I guess, every single town now having the updated urbanization buildings or so and garrison buildings, which I'll probably talk about later on. But the biggest change, just like Abandoned Ward, is Saltbrook. Saltbrook has been swapped over, so where the town hall used to be on the south side, they've now moved it to the northern end of the actual city. They've also made it so this is actually kind of like the downtown area, so the northern side of Saltbrook Channel is actually heavily urbanized, and the southern side is more of like, I guess, like the, not the suburb area, it's still heavily urbanized as well, so, but I wish that they would have, I don't know, done something along the lines of Jade Cove. So like what I would have liked was is maybe making it so, let's see here, I would have had it, well, they would have instead had Saltbrook be like a minor city up here, and then had it where this was basically just one giant city in the middle. Maybe change some of the rivers about or so, maybe make it so like maybe this lake connects to all of them and maybe connects to the channel. But as it stands, I do like what they've done with Saltbrook Channel. There's a good amount of differing elevations or so. I believe in this corner over here you have this church that's on this elevated plane where infantry can only go up it through these two ramps. One of them is a staircase so that goes up the side of the wall of the elevation, and the other one is the actual ramp that you can get vehicles on as well, which is very, very interesting. And you also have like all these different like factories or so taking place. You have like a vehicle factory over here, so it can almost be like a Stalingrad area where you have like a vehicle factory on the front line just popping out tanks and whatnot. So yeah, it should be really cool to see what happens in these giant cities. But yeah, overall, so nothing much else has changed. But I can still see that they put a lot of work and effort into urbanizing all these different locations, and it can't be understated or so that I do in fact like all these, and I do want them to expand upon this urbanized structure, so because as it stands, the more, the the more urban-focused cities. So all the new structures or so, garrison houses that they've added work well with it, but the other ones or so, they feel more open, essentially, or so, and they feel less... I feel like they have a low density to them, essentially, where they feel more open or so. Not like towns or so, but more like, I guess, the little towns that you would see in like the Wild West films, I guess, that are like a couple of structures and then off into like a barren, open, you know, like land or so, if you move like a couple of meters outside the city, which is kind of weird or so. I would like to see more urbanization added to the game. Maybe not centered around a town or so more, that's not necessary. Though I would like to see more of them or so. I feel like it would be nicer though to have more scattered towns or so. Make the area seem more lived in, essentially. As I don't see how a giant population could live here or so. So those should be like more scattered houses or so. Little like town sections or so outside of the town halls or so. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. Please comment, tell me what you think about all the different changes coming up. This video should be dropping on the 11th, so the patch should be coming out the very next day on the 12th. Should be fun. Please subscribe if you haven't. So we've been getting a lot of subscribers lately, and I do feel encouraged to make more of these videos the more subscribers I get, so I will not lie about that. But as always, take care, and I will catch you guys next time.